Well, hi students. We're here for another alumni interview for UW-La Crosse, and I'm really excited to have one of our alumni actually coming to us from France, but not originally from France. So he'll have a really interesting story as he tells you about his time at UW-La Crosse and how he got to where he is now. So I'm really excited to welcome Altaf to our session here. And do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and just give a little bit of your background?
Sure. Thanks, and thanks, Heather. So I'm Altaf Rizvi. I attended UWL from 2004 till 2008. So spent 4 years, a typical student there. I'm originally Indian, but grew up most of my life in Dubai and moved from Dubai to La Crosse, Wisconsin, to go to university at UWL. And since then, have continued to move around quite a bit. I currently live in France, but between La Crosse and now living in France. I've lived in France, in India, and a few other places before getting back here. And so yeah, that's me, and happy to speak to you today.
I feel like you're living the dream. Like so many of us want to live in different places around the world and experience different cultures. So that's awesome. I'm a little envious. Okay, so first question, how in the world did you hear about UW-La Crosse and why did you end up choosing it?
So I think it's two answers to that question. Hearing about UW-La Crosse was a bit by hazard. It just happened. My sister had attended a career fair. She's 3 years older, so she had attended it 3 years before I went to college. But she had kept all the material from that career fair that she had, and one of the universities that she had met and talked to and that she was interested in was UWL. So, as I was preparing to go to university, I was looking at all the material she had collected because I was too lazy to go to any university fair myself. And WL was one of the prospectuses in there, and looking through it looked really nice and interesting. And I did some research and decided to apply. Um, None of the photos in the prospectus showed any images of winter in Wisconsin. So you could
Surprise.
probably imagine coming from Dubai, probably experiencing the coldest temperature I'd experienced was 15 degrees Celsius, so I don't know,
Mhm.
60 Fahrenheit. And moving to Wisconsin was a big shock. But yeah, I applied, I got accepted, and ended up in the fall semester in 2004 in La Crosse.
That's awesome. Okay, so what were your academic experience like? What was your major and minor if you had one? And did you have any like favorite classes or favorite professors along the way?
So I had a pretty interesting academic experience, I would say, at UWL. What was really nice about UWL, but the American system as a whole, was the ability to change as you went through the process. So I initially started out at UWL focusing in accounting. But then as I went through, I realized that that's not what I actually wanted to do. And I switched majors and did a double major in finance and economics at UWL. And I was glad of that change because it's still what I work with today, and I'm happy that I managed to take that path. And I met a really nice group of professors and made a lot of friends in my classes while I was there. I mean, some of the professors, I don't recall all of them. It's been a while now, but
Mhm.
I had a professor called Keith Sharoni. I don't know if he's even still around at UWL, if he's retired. He might have retired, and he was my advisor as well for my last two years while I was there, and he was great. And what was also nice about UWL, especially as you got into the last 2 years or last 3 years of the program, was class sizes were typically pretty small. So it was easy to participate. It was easy to have a nice group discussions with your peers. It wasn't these massive classrooms or massive lecture halls where you were just another face, but your professor actually knew who you were, and it was also easy to get time with your professor. So I would say overall it was super nice. The other interesting part about the American education system is that you can pick up completely random
Mhm.
classes that have nothing to do with your
Mhm.
studies. So I took a snowboarding class.
Right.
I took a theater class, I think,
Mhm.
and a few other fun classes like that were also really nice to take. A philosophy class that were really nice to take and help
Mhm.
grow you as a person and do different things rather than just the field of study that you're in.
Hmm. I think that's one of the things that international students especially are maybe surprised about is just that idea that you're still studying your academic content, but then you get to take all these general education classes. So like take an art class, take a philosophy class, take a snowboarding class. That actually sounds really fun.
Yeah. And I think there's also another like part of the American system which is very interesting is that it's not that intense from a time perspective. So it can be intense from a content perspective and what you're studying, but time-wise, you're typically doing between 15 and 18 hours of class a week. And if I compare that with my master's program that I did in France right after I studied at UWL, I was between 40 and 45 hours of class a week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where it does differ is that, okay, out of those 15 to 18 hours, you are expected to do a lot of work outside of the classroom within your group by yourself. So it does change, but it does also give you a lot more independence and freedom as to how you want to
Mm-hmm.
manage your time.
Awesome. All right. So outside of the classroom, then, what were you involved in? Like, were you in student organizations? Did you do anything in the community? Were you part of the host friend program? Anything like that?
Yeah, so I was probably more active outside of the classroom than inside the classroom. So I did a lot of stuff in UWL while I was there. So probably the biggest part of my life or time at UWL was the International Student Organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I was part of the International Student Organization and a vice president there for 2 or 3 years. I don't remember,
Mm-hmm.
but we helped welcome all the new international students. We helped organize events on campus to share our culture, share where we're coming from, share our food with the other students, but
Awesome.
also the local community.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd organize an international banquet every year and food tasting weeks. And I mean, it was a really nice, tight, well knit community, but it was also with the goal of us being a community together, but also helping meet and interact with the American students that were there and providing a forum to do so. I was also part of student governance one year. So I was on the student governance committee, so the elected student board. And that was really interesting from a perspective to see how the students were getting involved in the working and the running of the university. And I think that's unique as well to the American university experience. I haven't seen that in many other countries. So that was really nice. And then I was also part of some activist organization doing and traveled quite a bit around the US with them. So it was a lot of extracurricular activities while I was at UWL.
That's cool. So then you graduated with 2 degrees. You had finance and economics. And can you tell us a little bit about what your career path was after you left La Crosse?
Sure. So I graduated in 2008, and it was probably not the best time in the world to graduate because 2008, America was going through, well, America and the world was going through a big, big, big financial crisis. So I wasn't able to land a job right away, and especially from the perspective of getting a job that I wanted to work with and feel that I wanted to work with. So me, I decided that I wanted to study more and wait a bit more to see how the crisis unfolds, and I moved to France partly to study more, partly because I followed my girlfriend at the time to be with her and come and be in France. And I came to France and I did a master's in economics while I was here in France. And following that, I moved to India. And I would say that's when my career moved back to India. That's where my career actually took off and started. I started with at Bain and Company, a consulting company, a big one of the top three consulting companies in the world. And I say having that having an American education, having a degree from UWL actually helped me get in because it made me stand out a bit more from some of the other people that were applying for that job and allowed me a foot in the door. And since then, I've done quite a few different things. I worked with Bain in India for a few years, but then I've worked with startups, helping them fundraise. I've worked on leading mergers and acquisitions for my current company, leading the partnership function, working in strategy, and currently I'm in a new role again, and I'm looking into account management. So I'm heading up one of our biggest accounts for the company that I work with.
Nice. That actually sounds like a really great kind of career progression. And you're right, sometimes when you graduate, it's maybe not the best time for the job market. So we see a lot of students who are like, well, maybe I should pursue further education. So when I'm ready to jump into the job field, I've got even more expertise. So that's great.
Yeah, exactly. And I knew the field that I wanted to work in, and the financial field, like, was in a massive, massive downturn at that point of time. So it really didn't make sense to try for a job when
Hmm.
the economy was so bad. So yeah, going and studying a bit more was super helpful before continuing on. And I think quite a few of my colleagues, well, not colleagues, quite a few of my friends who were in college did the same thing. Is either they just stepped out for a year or two, but then went back to get either a master's degree or their MBA before actually starting off their career.
Sure, that makes sense. All right, so here's my final question for you. If you were speaking with a prospective student who's trying to decide about coming to UW-La Crosse and pursuing education in the US, what kind of advice would you give them?
So I would say like you need to be aware that it's -20 in winter in Wisconsin before you make that choice. No, but La Crosse is a great place from the perspective of that the university is big, but it's not oversized. So when I was there, it was big enough that you could meet people that had similar interests to you, and even though the city is pretty small, it was a very student oriented city, so there was lots to do at the university and in the city for students. So that was really, really great. The quality of education was great, and the personalized attention that you could get by being in a mid-sized university is really, really beneficial. The flip side of that is you have to also look at university rankings, where your university ranks versus some of the other universities in the US. And I think UWL has been doing really, really well in the rankings, so that's great. And cost, and that's where also they typically stand out because they've managed to keep costs at a reasonable level.
Mhm.
And yeah, and think about it from the perspective of where you can have a good education, but also where you can have an overall good personal experience that can help you grow and that can help you further yourself in your career, and both are probably equally important.
That's awesome. Just so you know, you would make a perfect admissions counselor. So if you ever want to change fields, I think that you would make an awesome international admissions counselor because those are exactly the kinds of things that we hit on when families are like, well, tell us a little bit about Eau Claire or about La Crosse. What would be great about pursuing that? So that's awesome.
Thanks. I'll let you know if I'm looking to change career paths and
Let us know, look you up.
moving back to La Crosse. Maybe one day. I wouldn't mind moving back to La Crosse and going back downtown to all the bars that we haven't been to for a while.
You'd have to prep your children for like the -20 winter temperatures,
Yes,
which
yes,
would
they're
make
not
you
ready.
excited. Children,
They're
children are more resilient than we are.
probably. I mean, yeah, I guess we just need a bit of alcohol to help keep us warm, and they just need a few more layers.
And then it's fine. Then from there, it's good. Oh, Altaf, well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. I know that when people watch this interview, they're both going to learn a lot about UW-La Crosse, but they're also probably going to like laugh and smile a lot because it's clear you had a great experience, but this was just a really fun interview to do as well and to learn more about you. So thank you so much. And to the students, if you now do want to learn more about UW-La Crosse, please reach out to us. I'm one of our international admissions counselors, and you can comment on this Facebook page or social media page where you're seeing this and let us know that you're interested. Or you can also just send us an email to INTL, so Intel admissions at uwlax.edu. So we hope to hear from some students, and we're so excited that Altaf took this time to talk to us. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Heather. It's been great.